All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on wherever you are joining us from. And welcome to the Telerik R2 release webinar.
Right.
My name is Sam Basu, and with me we have John Bristow. We are both part of the DevRel team here at Progress. And we also have Stefan Stefanov, who is the PM for lots of the DevTool products that you're going to see. So if you don't like something today that we are going to see, it's his fault. Now, between the three of us, we're going to try to do justice to our R2 release, which actually went out 2 weeks prior. And arguably, this is one of the most innovative and busy releases that we have had in a long time. So we have a lot of content to cover, and we'll try our best. If you have attended webinars with us before, you'll notice that a couple of things are different. First is we are live in person in video. We're actually live streaming from our big conference, Progress Next, here in beautiful Boston. Tell us what you like in our comments. If you like seeing us in video, you can put a face to the voice that you've been hearing. We'll try doing more of this. And also our resident web expert, Ed Sherbanu, he is missing out today for a family situation. So John and me will try to cover the web stuff as best as we can. So with that, let's get going. First, a couple of housekeeping items as we roll in. This is not just a one-way street. It's meant to be interactive. We are going to be answering your questions live as best as we can. So ask away any doubts and concerns that you have, be it on the webinar Q&A panel, or if you just want to have an ongoing conversation on Twitter, just use the hashtag #HeyTelerik, and we're going to keep an eye out on the Q&A and try to answer as many things as we can. If you have audio-video issues, or if your boss comes in and knocks on your door and says, "I need you out," don't worry. We are recording the whole thing in HD, and it's going to be up on YouTube as soon as we can get it out. So keep the questions coming. And here is more of an incentive for you to ask questions. The best question at the end of the day that's well-balanced wins a Bose QC35 noise-canceling headphone. This is arguably one of the best pieces of tech I have.
This is literally my favorite piece of tech for traveling.
Yeah.
So
yes, awesome.
These are wonderful headphones if you haven't had them before. So definitely worth
getting
asking.
one for an answer, for a best answer.
That's right.
All right, so yeah, please fire over your questions, okay? Now, normally we kind of jump into the Telerik stuff, and we do have a lot of things to cover, but I thought we'll take maybe a minute or two just to kind of take a step back and understand where things are headed with the entire .NET ecosystem. Lots of things are changing, and kind of where we fit into this picture. So we make a lot of things at Progress, but the Telerik suite, the UI controls, our productivity tools, reporting tools, they're all kind of meant for .NET developers. And I think it's interesting to, I stepped ahead of myself. So I think it's interesting to see where .NET stands today.
Yeah.
If you look at where Microsoft is with Xamarin and a few other acquisitions and kind of moving things around, they are able to say that with .NET, you're able to target everything under the sun. There is no device, no platform that you cannot target with .NET today, which is a great story. And you see innovative things like IoT and ML.NET being included as a part of .NET framework now. So really, if you are investments in .NET, feel good about the fact that you are in a rich ecosystem that's going to keep getting better.
Correct.
Now, here's my .NET big picture story, because we like saying that there is not one .NET now. There are different .NETs for different types of applications that you're building. If you are doing WinForms or WPF or WebForms, feel free to use the .NET framework as it is today. It's going to be fine. And people ask us, is .NET framework eventually going to go away? No, it's kind of baked into Windows. As long as Windows is around, .NET framework will be around. So feel at peace that you'll be fine. But if you look at .NET Core, which is lean and cross-platform, and it's much more modular, it's kind of written from ground up, it's a big endeavor. That's seeing a lot of investments, true. But again, I mean, unless you're using some of these newer APIs, or if you want to kind of put your apps in a Linux container, put it in the cloud, you don't have a reason to go to .NET Core right away. So be at peace where you are, and know that you have full support from Microsoft. And then you look at the Xamarin story, which is Mono. That's the runtime that takes your .NET code to other platforms like iOS, Android, and a lot more platforms nowadays are coming up. So it's not just one .NET. Pick the .NET that works for your app and your services. And we are here to kind of make sure you are successful. So no matter what be the tools of your trade, be it Visual Studio on Windows or VS for Mac or Visual Studio Code, our UI is meant to work with everything. And we'll give you polished and performant UI controls so you can ship your apps faster and get going. So that's my 1-minute pitch on .NET. I think it's a great time to be a .NET developer. And we are investing more and more to make sure all of you guys are successful.
Absolutely.
All right, so with that, we're going to show you a whole bunch of new things. So first thing is, if you want to play around with this, if you have not already gotten these things, go ahead and please get the hot bits for R2. I know people use different ways to get it. So if you are just using NuGet packages to bring in Telerik bits into your projects, go ahead and update those NuGet packages. If you use our control panel, go ahead and make those updates. And then if you just want to go to the product websites, just download the DLLs. However you want to do it, just get the latest bits.
Yeah, all the things we're going to be showing you here today, they're all live, so you can grab them today.
Yep. All right, so with that, I do want to bring on Stefan. So tell us a little bit about what was the overall theme with R2. What did we try doing?
Okay. So with our releases, as usual, we are trying to enhance our products even further and to make it easier for our users to build modern and high-performance applications really fast. So with this release, again, it's packed with improvements to the existing products portfolio just to make the developers more successful. So today, as Sam mentioned, we are going to be talking about the Telerik product line, so to say, of .NET components. And I would like to invite you tomorrow to our Kendo UI release webinar, where John, together with Carl Bergenheim, the PM of our Kendo UI product line, are going to talk about all things Kendo UI. So with that, this release, as I mentioned, packed with new stuff. On the web front, we have added plenty of tag helpers to the ASP.NET Core product. We have added also SignalR Support, and plenty of new components are coming over there. Our Regex product suite, which is one of the most mature suites over there, also got a handful of enhancements. On the mobile front, Xamarin, it's picking up really, really fast. It's a really great way to build native mobile applications with C# today, and we see a lot of demand from our customers for this technology. This is why we are investing really heavily into it, and just this release we have added 3 or even 4 new components, I can say, to the suite. We just released the tree component, a barcode component. We have enhanced our calendars with capabilities to present the schedules in a DayView format, as well as we have added Visual Studio for Mac support for those Mac users over here.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. On the desktop front, with the WPF and the WinForms product lines, these are both extremely mature products. They both consist of more than 120 components to cover every scenario possible that we have met throughout the years. But still, we are always seeking what our customers need and how we can improve further. And this is why we have added stuff like image editor control in WinForms, as well as we have released a suite of file dialogues for WPF, so you can have consistent look and feel, and without the need to switch into Windows UI and have the same look and feel for your application. So with that, we have also pushed into the reporting side of the offering with Report and Report Server, where we have added this data form web services component. It basically allows you to go and fetch data from any data service out there without having to do this on your own. This component is going to do all the work for you to tie your data to your reports.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say, like, we are continually adding value to DevCraft and DevTools bundles. So if you have things from us, you'll just see more and more UI light up, more and more platforms, and more polished on UI controls.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is the place where I would like to encourage you to go ahead and continue to provide your feedback. We are constantly looking at it, and we are taking it into consideration when we are building our roadmaps.
Cool.
Besides those improvements in the product lines, we are also always on the lookout for the new and trendy technologies out there. So we can enable our customers to take advantage of them even before they are ready to do it. So whenever you need it, you can grab it from day one, and you can take your businesses to the next level. So the trends that we are currently observing and looking after, some of these are, for example, building smart applications, cognitive applications. You probably know that there are various services over there for image recognition, for speech recognitions, ways to build chatbots even. And we think that going down the road, this would help application developers to make their applications smarter, more engaging, and to be able to deliver more value to their users with it. So to this point, what we did this release is we have enabled resources throughout all product lines that show how you can tie the different technology pieces with the different cloud services out there. The next thing that we believe is on the rise, and we think that our customers and application developments in general are going to benefit from, is the AR and VR. AR and VR is really big today into gaming, but we see a lot of use cases where it can deliver enormous value in business applications as well. So this is another trend we are looking into, and we already released a pilot product which you can check out on your website.
I'll talk about it.
Yeah, so Sam is going to cover this a little bit later.
Thunder, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing that I wanted to mention is the conversational UI. This is a theme that we released for all of our product lines. Basically, we released a conversational UI component that allows you to integrate chatbots into your web, mobile, and desktop applications today. These chatbot components are framework agnostic, so it doesn't really matter which framework you picked to build the backend of your chatbot, and you can complement this backend with a easy to use and natural conversational UI, modern conversational UI.
Yeah, so this is a big deal because this is the first time where we are doing something which kind of stretches across all of our product lines,
Correct.
web,
Yeah,
desktop,
absolutely.
mobile. Chatbots are pretty big, and we want to enable developers to be more successful no matter what type of applications they're building. So John, do you want to kind of talk about like how these kind of play out, the chatbot scenarios?
Yeah, so when you're thinking about how you might integrate a chatbot with your application, there's obviously a range of scenarios that can come involved. So you may want to actually build a chatbot on its own as a standalone application, for example. Perfectly reasonable thing to do. Some good examples of that are maybe a help desk application for your company. But there are other examples as well. So for example, if you're building a mobile application with tabs, you may want to integrate it into one of the tabs itself, and then thereby enabling sort of an interactive aspect of your application going forward. To Sam's point, though, I mean, this isn't exclusively to mobile. It's also to desktop and web. So you got to think about those things as you're looking forward.
Yeah. And I mean, what I want to add is chatbots are everywhere. Everyone's doing it, but it depends on like what exactly you want to do. Mm-hmm. On one side, you have like the knowledge chat engines, which like the extreme form of it is voice assistants like Alexa or Cortana, where you have ML and we have kind of non-stop skills and apps that kind of help lighter different scenarios. Mm-hmm. But the other side of it is transactional chatbots, where you're not maybe as wide in your breadth of what you offer, but you're trying to solve a line of business scenario, like making a doctor's appointment, making a flight reservation. Yeah. And those are maybe simpler scenarios, but we want to kind of give you the UI to light up those things quickly and be able to hook it up to whatever chat service you have.
Exactly, and this scenario is more appealing to the businesses as a whole, you know. Get a particular problem and solve it with a chatbot in place.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right, so that's kind of the overall theme. R2 was a busy release, so let's kind of dive into things. So we're going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to talk about the mobile things first, and then John takes about the desktop. We'll talk about the web, and then we'll close it out with reporting. So let's take a look at what mobile developers can gain from our R2 release and what's in store for us. So Xamarin is clearly the way forward in which .NET developers can take their skills and make native apps for iOS, Android, and other platforms. I think Xamarin truly democratizes mobile development on .NET, and you're getting to build native cross-platform apps on any device. So that's great, and we are going to continue investing. Xamarin Forms is something we are pretty excited about. Xamarin Forms just hit the 3.0 release, and we have a lot of support already for it. Like if you want to do styling with CSS, if you want to do visual state managers, we already support all of those things in our controls. So your goal is to kind of have as much abstracted C# logic as possible and then have a common UI that's consistent across all platforms. So again, the number of platforms that you get to support with Xamarin Forms is increasing every day, and we are, again, exploring how we can light up scenarios on Mac OS or Tizen or the web through WebAssembly. So interesting things going on with Xamarin Forms for sure. So let's talk about what we did for you in UI for Xamarin Land in particular. So just a quick kind of recap, if you're not using UI for Xamarin, it's a suite of products that's meant to make you more productive for Xamarin developers. So things that are really hard to create by hand, charts and graphs and side drawers, and list view controls that are full-featured. Those are the things that we're going to give you out of the box, and it's for Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, as well as for Xamarin Forms. And you can work this in both Windows or Mac, anyhow you want. You can just bring in a NuGet package. For Mac, thanks to these guys, we actually have a new installer. Yeah. So you can just download Xamarin, UI for Xamarin, just as you do on Windows. Now, we have a new toolbox that I'll show you, but don't take my word for it. We have sample apps in the stores in both iOS and Android. So look for Telerik UI for Xamarin in iOS and Android stores and play around with the UI and see what we can do for you. Our goal is to make the best possible Xamarin UI. So with that said, a couple of new things. Toolbox. Developers work in different ways. Some of us are happy with XAML. Some of us like dragging and dropping. So we give you a toolbox because sometimes we forget how much stuff we have in our suite. So all of our controls can just light up in a toolbox now. In Visual Studio, you can just like drag and drop, and it works. Conversational UI, we talked about this. Again, you can see this theme all throughout web, desktop, and mobile. Again, the point is to kind of give developers the smart UI that they're looking for. Be able to customize things like hero cards and quick like picker options like dates and other types of calendars. So it's easier conversation and it flows much easier. But at the same time, you get to hook it up to whichever service you want. And I'll show you that in a quick demo. TreeView, this was much asked for, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so
it's
if you
even
have,
top item on the Xamarin
there you go.
list.
So if you have any hierarchical data which has parent-child relationships, you can simply bind it to our UI and it lights up. You can customize how it looks, the collapsing and the expanding part of it. Really easy to bind, be it straight up or be it through MVVM. We also have a barcode. This was also highly demanded because mobile phones are very suitable for showing barcodes and QR codes. So we are happy to announce a new barcode control that does just about everything under the sun that you can think of.
Absolutely.
I think 30 plus different types of barcodes and QR codes and PDF codes. So different ways in which you can size things and control the pixel perfect rendering of it. And then other goodies, data form. We had a control where you can take a Poco business object and bind it to the UI pretty quickly. Now we have two-way data binding. So the business object updates, the UI updates, and vice versa. List views, we have expand and collapse on nodes if you have hierarchical data. DayView support in the calendar, and like performance all throughout. So
is that all? I mean,
yeah,
no, it's not. Those are just the highlights here.
Just the highlights, yes. So a lot of good things for you in the Xamarin Land. So let me step out of PowerPoint and just actually show you this in action. So I'm going to pull up Visual Studio for Mac here. And essentially what I'm going to show you is just a quick app. So if I go into my downloads folder here, you can do this by yourself. I'm going to make this bigger. So if you just hit the trial button, if you're not using UI for Xamarin, you can get it in different ways like NuGet or installer. But this is what we give you in the trial version. And in here are the binaries. And in here is also a QSF application, which has all of the source code that I'm showing you. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the source code because you can read this. But let me just show you what this app looks like and what it does. So I'm going to pull up my iOS simulator here. And I'm going to make this maybe a teeny bit bigger. So here's my iOS simulator. You can see that it's going to conversational UI first. Yeah, it warns me about the trials. Thank you. So let's do different scenarios like travel assistance. These are some inbuilt things that we think are beneficial to see for developers on how to code. So travel assistance, notice that it's actually connecting up to Azure. So Microsoft Bot Framework. Simple scenarios like let's get a travel booked for whatever you're trying to do. Let's say a vacation for the family. Notice the pickers, so it's easy for someone to pick. Select a start date, and this is where the calendar control comes in. Again, these are things that we can light up because we already have those native controls. Let's just say I want to be out here this weekend. I want to be gone for the entire week. And let's just say where we want to go. Well, it's asking how many people. Maybe I will take these two. So let's just say 3. And it's saying inbuilt where you want to go. Let's do Spain. And OK, again, what's the picker there? And then if I scroll up, notice these things here. These are what we call hero cards. This is what you get to customize the experience with. So it's easy for someone to just kind of swipe through. And once you're happy with the result, you just hit choose. And then we can say, hey, do you want to go ahead and make the reservations? Again, a picker that shows flight itineraries here. Let's just do that flight and hit OK. And it should be saying, yep, I'm done at this point. I mean, it's faking some things, but you get the point. It's saying, this is what I have for you. That's the contact person. And when you say yes, it's done. So that's just a quick chat conversation for travel services. Envision this for your line of business app, and we'll give you all of this UI out of the box, the pickers, the calendars, all of these things, the hero cards, so you get to customize it.
I think that's incredibly important to mention, which is everything, you're going to see this, as Sam mentioned, across all of the product lines with web, desktop, and mobile. These hero cards, the pickers, etc., that integration is going to be consistent.
Yeah. So for Xamarin, we are rendering this in XAML, but when we talk about the web, we'll just render this in HTML, JavaScript.
That's true.
Right? So more flexibility. Now let's step out. I'm going to show you more things here. This one here is the barcode. If I can swipe, there you go. So barcode. This one is a traditional boarding pass that you see for any flight that you take. Right? That's just a QR code for a boarding pass. If I go look into other special offers, this one has a barcode. And then let me show you this one here, which has all of the 1D and the 2D type rendering for barcodes. Take a look at the number of things, the different formats of barcodes that we can support. It's really everything under the sun. Right, so take a look at what we can do with barcodes, and you can render this for like a QR code. You can actually render the QR code. We give you a configurator, so you can choose which URL it points to, what's the data behind it, what's the encryption, what's the encoding behind it, and then the QR code adjusts itself. So again, a full-featured barcode and a QR code renderer for your Xamarin apps. Now let's go to the last thing that I want to show you here. And I'm going to swipe over, and it's this TreeView here. It's a TreeView as you would expect. It has expand and collapse nodes, so I can expand and collapse. That's just the basic view of it. If I go into some customizations, these are countries. Notice how it does the nested parent-child relationships, so I can collapse these things, and I can collapse all of Europe. So any nested hierarchical data that you have, it's really nice to kind of showcase that. Great for org charts, great for other line of business
navigation of your application.
Exactly. Yeah. So do all of that from your Xamarin app, and the other UI, it's all there. So go ahead and play with this control or this app on your iOS or Android phone, so you'll see what we can light up for you. So let me step out of running the app for a second and just show you what this looks like. Here's our solution. This one here is, I've kind of, for the sake of time, gotten rid of the Android and the UWP projects, but it's there. This is our portable class library. It's also a .NET standard now. And this is where you can see all of our apps or all of our controls in action. Go into the examples folder. You'll see all of the UI kind of light up and how we hook things up in our app. So let me show you exactly just how we do the conversational stuff. So I'm looking at the Azure chatbot service here. This is what we ship out of the box, and it's just stubbed out things, but notice how we are doing the HTTP client, and we are newing up the Azure chatbot service, and then here's the anatomy of what we are doing with conversational UI. So when you are firing up a chat conversation, you have essentially a person who is responding. That's the author of the chat, and then you have an items collection. And that's the collection that has all the chat items included in it. That's it. So, and you have kind of even handlers that say, I have received a message versus I can push out a message. That's all. So you keep track of that collection, and then you can keep sticking things into it, or you push things out of it, and then you have your UI respond based on that. So that's just a simple way in which we are hooking up the Azure chatbot. Here's our travel view model. Notice the author here. Here's the items collection. It's an observable collection, so I can bind it to my chat box, and then here's the collection change. That's the one thing that kind of triggers the notifications when things change. And then here are our hero cards. This is the customizable cards that I showed you. It's a list of card images and card actions. You can customize it however you want. And then once you are done with all of that, here's our XAML. It's a little busy, but essentially it boils down to showing a couple of templates that render the things that we want. And way down here, we'll show you the actual rad chart control, which is just right here. And so notice how the rad chart is kind of bound to that item source collection of items, and it has authors and template selectors. So it takes off from here and kind of lets you customize things as you want. Back on the boarding pass thing that I showed you, this is just a simple barcode. So if I come down here, you'll notice that I just have a simple barcode here. That's just a QR code for the boarding pass. If you look at the other examples of QR code, This one here, notice, has the configurator for the QR code. So you can actually change how your QR code behaves with the error correction, the FNC1 module that you pick, so what kind of encoding you want to pick, and it can all be data bound, so your QR code kind of adjusts itself on the fly. And then the 1D barcode example, again, notice how easy it is to change these encodings. It's all the type of barcode that you render. So this one here, if I keep scrolling down, and let's see, right down here, further down. We have a lot of barcodes in this example.
Yeah.
Okay, so notice how this one's just a barcode of this encoding. The next one is a different encoding, right? So just change up the encodings. The sizing mode changes how it stretches or versus how the pixels are rendered in a compact way. So all the different options, they are just like one dot IntelliSense away for you to render all of these barcodes. All right, and then the last thing I want to show you is the view model that you saw for the TreeView. It is simply just a TreeView RAD TreeView control, and it is bound to this hierarchy of things. So if I look at the data that's bound to it, it's just an IEnumerable collection of items, and they have the parent-child relationship within them. And you can bind this to however you want in your view models. You can. This one's showing you an account and a folder view model, and it has parent-child relationships. It does support commanding, so you can do navigate and command actions when someone clicks around. So just a quick look. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on the code because people have this QSF application in their trial installation folder. So play around with it. We are working very closely with Xamarin. So if you're a Xamarin developer, be assured that we have top-notch support for all of the releases, and we are investing heavily to make things very innovative and polished UI for all of Xamarin. So let's go back to slides here and fire things up one more time. We saw the demo. So again, that's where Xamarin UI is. Ship your apps faster. Don't waste your time reinventing the wheel. We are here to help. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
Yeah.
Questions,
sorry.
right?
We have questions, yes. That's part of the reason why we're doing this live, right? So Pete asks, can the chatbots be integrated with Cortana or Alexa? And one of the things that we've done is we've made this conversational UI sort of bot agnostic in a sense. So there are many frameworks out there from Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, for example. I know that the bot framework for Microsoft has Cortana integration. So you'd have to look into those sort of specific scenarios. But really, we provide the UI building blocks. Everything that kind of comes along for the ride in terms of plumbing is stuff that you can integrate with. So we don't dictate that, just to be clear. We do provide the UI stuff. So great question there. Were there any more questions on the Q&A pane for?
Yes, and this is what we were doing here with John. We were observing the questions that are coming in and trying to address some of them. There was a question whether it's going to be possible to use a chatbot to show a discussion to the user. So I guess here we mean peer-to-peer chat, and yes, this is possible with, I think, all of our components. We already have even a demo how this can be achieved. So if you want to chat with your girlfriend or something, feel free to do that. It's possible. Hashtag for the questions once again is Hey Telerik.
Yeah, Hey Telerik.
Yeah. Can a chatbot be integrated into a WhatsApp? So if WhatsApp basically provides the means to plug in custom UI in there, feel free to do it. It's a piece of UI, and you can integrate it in web, mobile, or desktop application as long as they support such extensibility points.
Good question here. Can a chatbot be used in web applications? Absolutely. You're going to see that tomorrow in the Kendo UI webinar, so make sure you sign up for that. But we have integration with jQuery, React, Angular, and Vue through Kendo UI that you can do all kinds of things with chatbots. So it's good stuff.
And also with like ASP.NET, MVC, and Core.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on.
Sorry,
so,
didn't mean to distract you.
No worries.
Just want to make sure we get the questions answered.
Okay, so this is big, AR, VR. Okay, this may be kind of pushing the envelope here. Maybe you have seen what AR, augmented reality, and mixed reality, what it can do for you. HoloLens came out about 3 years back. Microsoft since has had a chain of partners doing mixed reality devices. So maybe it's early days, but the potential for line of business apps is huge. Because if you think about verticals like education, aviation, car sales, industrial manufacturing, you can visualize a lot more things. It's a bigger 3D canvas, right? Now, what this means for developers is maybe you're excited, maybe you want to see what this can do for your line of business. It's just not very easy because there is a steep learning curve. So we all see the potential. It's the next frontier maybe, but how do you come in? How do you get started? So if you're a .NET developer with C#, Unity is the preferred way to kind of build these 3D object models. It's not very easy. And this is where we come in, right? We want to make you successful. So we have had a team of a couple of engineers spend like 6 months on it. Are we announcing Telerik UI for AR, VR? Not quite yet. Will it become a product? Very likely, eventually. So this is an experimental thing for you guys to play around with, and for us to get our feet wet as well. We tried to kind of build an app. It's a HoloStack application. That's the URL where you can go and get it. You can install it on your HoloLens, play around with it. The goal is to kind of provide a little bit of guidance. Like if you were to build a true line of business app in HoloLens, how do you go about building it? And this is where we come in with the things that we are known for, like charts and graphs, and fine-tuning those edges which are difficult to render from a built-in toolkit. So. Yeah, go for it.
In general, in our experience so far, we just took all of the possible ways to build such an application, and our purpose was to see what is the best way for a .NET developer to build such an application for AR and VR today. And exploring the various options, we came down to Unity, and as you mentioned, it's also the recommended by Microsoft way to do such an application. But still, Unity is a gaming engine. It's well known for gaming, and it lacks the capabilities for building line of business applications. And our expertise can help over here, and our goal down the road is to make it easier for a .NET developer to reuse their existing skill set to build AR and VR application. So we'll be working on stuff like just building the paradigms for UX, all the bindings and commanding models that you're used to from XAML, and all kind of stuff. And as Sam mentioned, we right now released this HoloStock demo application. It comes with full source code and our first data visualization component. It's on the website already live, and going down the road, we're talking with people, with customers, and we're seeking what and how we can be of use more for our next releases going down the road.
It's pretty exciting, though.
Yeah, it is. It's a whole other 3D canvas to light up our charts and graphs.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep an eye out. Get the app, get the source code, and we will turn our wheels to make this an easier experience for developers going forward. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to John to talk about some of the desktop stuff.
In the meantime, I can just cover one question, which is, what is the .NET Framework version we can use with these chatbots? I believe it's 4.6. And basically, this is required by the framework, the bot framework that we use, Microsoft bot framework for some of our examples. So this is the requirement for the bot framework. This is why you need to target it. Go ahead.
Please keep sending your questions in. They're great, guys. So. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's new for desktop developers. So if you're building a desktop application that's targeting WPF, WinForms, or even UWP, lots of great things worth looking into there. So let's get started by talking about some of the new things that we've added. So conversational UI obviously is an ongoing theme here, and that continues forward with our desktop UI controls. So for WPF developers, for WinForm developers, you can now utilize those same hero cards and other aspects you saw earlier by Sam for both of those types of frameworks. In addition to that, we've added some new controls for both WPF and for WinForms. In particular, the new image editor within WinForms allows you to do inline editing of images for things that you're doing in your line of business applications. Common requirement often. There's other things that are interesting as well. So for example, we've added some nice subtleties or nuances to things like the chart view for animations. We've added some new features to the file dialog, etc. So if we take a look at some of these individually, let's start with WPF. So Telerik UI for WPF, a very popular framework used by a whole bunch of developers out there. Features over 120 UI controls. And as we mentioned earlier, that conversational UI control is available there. So you can go ahead and start building those into your WPF applications. We've added some additional features to things like the masked input control. So now you can add regular expressions to your masked input control fields. So that allows you to validate things like email addresses or URLs, things that are often kind of hard to write. Regular expressions are hard enough to write, and so being able to integrate those into a masked input control is really nice. Another feature we've added in particular is series animations to the chart view component. So this is giving it a little nice subtlety to the way in which these operate, and these things really kind of light up your application, especially when looking at data. We also have the very popular format painter integrated into the RichTextBox. This is popularized in many Office products that you may have seen in, say, like Word. And what this effectively allows you to do is apply different formats across your document very quickly, just simply by clicking the format painter there and applying that to various parts of your document. The file dialog is a really popular control in Telerik UI for WPF. It allows you to basically get an inline sort of file view of documents within your WPF application. And so going forward, we've added some new features like, for example, a document editor, or sorry, a document file view for the dialogues themselves. And that's a pretty popular one for a lot of developers who are using that. And then finally, the scheduler has a new DayView that allows you to go in a very granular way on various days of the week. You can view it in allocations of 1, 2, 4, 5 days if you want to. So it's pretty useful for that. All right, let's jump over to a demo. So for that, I'm going to jump into my Windows machine here.
Did you notice the UI of this application, by the way?
It's
so Fluent is
That's
inspired,
right.
You see?
Yeah, so for those of you who haven't seen this lately, we added Fluent support in our previous release. We talked just about this in the previous webinar. If you're going to go check that out on YouTube, it's available there. And so we have 2 themes for Fluent, light and dark. Yep. And so this is now integrated here. We have translucent backgrounds and really nice things that are Fluent enabled. So this isn't available by default, by the way, if you're using Microsoft standard stock tools. This is available only through Telerik. So great stuff. So conversational UI, obviously this is something that you saw with Sam. Same sort of premise applies where you have things like cards, interactions. This will integrate with back-end bot frameworks, Dialogflow, bot frameworks from Microsoft, Facebook, etc. So there's lots of capabilities there. And being able to do this sort of integration within a WPF application is really, really powerful. And the way in which you'll do this is similar sort of concepts, hero cards, integration through request response messages to a back-end framework if you wish. And so that's now supported across desktop applications through WPF. Jumping back here, some of the other applications are rather controls that we've updated. Here's the masked input control. We'll go ahead and jump over to the integration for regular expressions. So you can see here, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and define a regular expression that would allow me to define an email address if I wanted to. So I could say, this one isn't valid as an example. And this is done through a regex expression that you see here. And so being able to integrate that now into your masked input controls provides you a powerful mechanism for validating input. A variety of other controls have been updated as well for Telerik UI for WPF. So chart view, one of my favorite ones. It's a really powerful data visualization control. We have support for animations, and this really goes down to a very granular or fine controlled level. So you can basically control the animations in a variety of ways. You can define how they play, in what order do they play, in what method do they play, and this is a really nice capability for adding a little bit of subtlety to your applications going forward. So that's another new capability in Telerik UI for WPF. There's a variety of other things as well. I'll just jump over to the scheduler view here, for example. And we now have the ability to define different day views. So the visible days, if we wanted to, we could go ahead and change this. This gives you a little bit more control over the way in which the scheduler itself shows being displayed. And this was a highly requested feature, I would imagine, from customers. Yep. So lots of great stuff there. In terms of what's available for WPF application developers. So that's a very quick tour of what's available there. Go check it out. And again, all those demos are live. Let's now talk about Telerik UI for WinForms. Still a lot of application development being done with this framework. WinForms is very robust, very mature, and certainly a great candidate for building an application going forward, especially in brownfield environments where you're having to maintain an application that's been around for years. And to that end, we're still committed to it. So we have a lot of customers that use WinForms, and to that end, we've added additional support for things like the conversational UI, which we've talked about. We've added a whole bunch of other features as well. So I mentioned the new image editor control that we've added that allows you to do rich things with inline editing of images and a whole host of other things. So for example, we've added integration for integrating with the cloud services that are out there, documentation. So to give you a little bit of additional insight on how to do that. Our new image editor control that is available in WinForms now allows you to do inline editing of images. Holiday support. Who doesn't like holidays? So we can go ahead and add holidays to our scheduler. This includes custom holiday files as well if you wish. There's the format painter that I added, that I mentioned earlier with WPF. That's also available inside of the RichTextEditor of UI for WinForms. We have docs integration within Visual Studio, and then some minor capabilities that we've added, like being able to fit spreadsheet contents when printing.
Yep.
So let's jump over to a quick demo showing some of those capabilities. So jump over to our WinForms demo. So if you haven't seen this before, this is our WinForms demo sort of example stock application. So here's our similar sort of example travel assistance application that allows you to interact on a conversational UI aspect. And being able to do this within WinForms means that you can preserve your investment that you've made within WinForms. So you don't have to worry about moving over to a different framework. You can stay with WinForms, and we'll continue to support you going forward with aspects like conversational UI. All of which, of course, is also themed. And again, if you missed last quarter's webinar, we added Fluent support to WinForms as well. So you can add Fluent themes for your WinForm applications. So we have both Fluent Light and Fluent Dark. So great stuff going forward there.
So we make sure we keep all of our clients' applications modern to the latest design trends out there. So WinForms is not legacy.
That's right. So the image editor, this is obviously a new capability we've added to our WinForms applications, those customers who are using that. So this is basically an ability to integrate this control within your application. You can go ahead and do a variety of operations against images here. So I can rotate images, I can draw on top of them if I wanted to, for example. So that gives you a little, it's not Photoshop, but it's reasonable, right?
It allows basic image operations within your application. Your user does not have to leave the app to finish them.
Absolutely. So that's going to be pretty important there. And again, the theme support, again, cross-cuts into that mode as well. Other capabilities, so we mentioned the scheduler. So now we have support for holidays. And so you can see here I have United States holidays listed. I can add other ones as well. Being Canadian, you know, Canada holidays are important to me. But if I wanted to, I could also import holiday files. So if I have some holidays that are for a geo that I'm located or I'm supporting, I can go ahead and add those as well if I wanted to. So the important thing to, again, reiterate here is that, you know, WinForms still is being invested into. We still consider it as a strategic investment from us. A lot of our customers continue to use it.
Yeah.
So it's very important from that aspect. Before I jump into UWP, do we have any questions regarding anything that we've seen so far?
I think chatbot is the main hype over here. There are people that want to build the next WhatsApp with the chatbot components. Yes, you can do it. That's there for you.
All right, perfect.
And keep in mind, we'll keep the conversation going on Twitter. We'll just keep answering more questions even after we're done with this.
All right, cool. Yep. All right, we've got more stuff to cover. So UWP, obviously. So if you haven't heard of this, this is our product offering that's available for free and available as open source. We made this open source about, what, a year ago, year and a half?
Year and a half.
Yep, and so it contains over 20 UI controls for UWP developers. Powerful controls like a chart, a grid, things that were missing in the UWP space for a long time. And so we offer this up. And in case you weren't aware, we're also integrated within the Windows Template Studio, which is an add-in for Visual Studio. Yeah. This is a wonderful little add-in that allows you to quickly scaffold out a UWP app. And so we're integrated deeply within there, specifically for the chart and for the grid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you want to go check that out, you can. We're available up on GitHub. So just some minor updates for Telerik UI for UWP. We've added the ability to collapse and expand groups within the ListView. And then obviously the DayView support that you saw earlier in the scheduler applies also to the calendar that's in UWP. So that's this view here. All right, quickly looking at a quick demo here. I'll just jump over to the SDK examples here. And if we take a look at, for example, the calendar control, you can see we have a multi-day view here that I can jump into. And what this enables me to do is I can go ahead and customize the actual day view here if I want. I can take a look at modifying the number of days that are being displayed at any given time. And there we go. So I can say my week step, for example, I want to be 4. And I can go ahead and display 4 days during the week if I wanted to. So nice little feature there. And again, these things will be continued to be iterated on going forward. So just some quick demo, just to kind of show you, give you a taste of what's available there. So go check it out, and we'll go ahead and pass it back over to Sam now to show us what's new for web developers.
Okay. Web, this is big. ASP.NET is how .NET developers build web applications in different ways. And we have 3 very different things for ASP.NET developers. I mean, I mentioned them all in one slide, but Ajax is for WebForms, MVC is for MVC developers, and then we are also heavily invested in ASP.NET Core, which is running on the new .NET runtime. So for all of those things, you're going to see investments that kind of stretch all across, because we want that consistent UI experience no matter how you are building your ASP.NET applications. So conversational UI, this is back because it's
everywhere.
It's a theme here.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's everywhere.
So the point is, you can do the exact same things that you saw on Xamarin and on desktop now for ASP.NET. And the good thing is it's also for Ajax and for MVC and Core. So no matter how you build your ASP.NET applications, you have all of the same features like hero cards and customizable pickers and suggestions and so on. So I'll show you a little bit of this. Now, there are goodies for ASP.NET developers kind of stretched all throughout. For MVC and Core, we have a brand new control called the drop-down TreeView, which was heavily requested. The other thing we are doing is we are realizing that web and mobile apps don't live in a silo, and most likely developers hook it up to some cloud services, be it ours, be it somebody else's. It doesn't matter. It's all an open world. So we actually have some samples and some demos and some documentation, so you can hook up your ASP.NET applications to Azure, like Cosmos DB or Azure Functions or even Amazon or AWS and Google. So we'll give you some documentation so you know exactly how to do it. Some more enhancements, OData, V4 support. This will make probably John happy. WebForms, it now uses jQuery latest version, 3.3. So you're good to go. Again, jQuery isn't dead. It's fine for WebForms and other applications. Okay, for MVC and Core, in particular for .NET Core, we have SignalR that's coming back in ASP.NET Core. This was something we lost when they rebooted. And SignalR is a nice real-time framework for writing chat applications and other things. And if you consider like what we're doing with conversational UI and with the real-time backend, you can envision the possibilities. So SignalR support is back. We can't officially say it because Microsoft hasn't officially announced it, but even the preview bits, we have support for SignalR in ASP.NET Core. And this is the big news, tag helpers. With ASP.NET Core, we have a new way of rendering the same UI that you see in MVC, or it's all powered by Kendo UI, but tag helpers is a more efficient way. It's much more HTML-friendly way of rendering the same controls. And this is a demand we have had for a long time, because ASP.NET Core has a ton of like UI controls, like 70 plus. All of them are now capable of being rendered through tag helpers. So this was a big.
This is huge. This is probably the number one thing for me if I was building an ASP.NET application. For sure.
So we are running a little short of time. So let me step out and maybe I can skip Visual Studio. I'll show you some demos right here in my browser. So first thing here is I'm on demos.telerik.com, ASP.NET Core. So just play around with all our demos. We have it for every UI suite. So all of these components that you see, data management, editors, charts, and graphs, even complex ones like grids and list views, you can render them all through tag helpers. So just to kind of give you an example of how this is done. So let's go into an autocomplete thing. This is kind of a traditional way of getting started. So if I just start typing, you'll see the autocomplete. This is rendered traditionally through either HTML JavaScript, which is down here. You'll notice that this is just straight up JavaScript, HTML, Kendo autocomplete, and then I'm binding it to this collection of things. Now, this can be rendered through MVC, which is just the Razor syntax of way of doing it. These are called HTML helpers at html.kendo and then whatever it is that you want. But now, for every one of these controls, you can just go back in. And let me go into autocomplete. And let me see. It's back out. Let me show you the tag helpers. That's the one I want to get to. Yeah, maybe not. let me start from the beginning. So maybe the page didn't get refreshed the right way.
That's all right.
So let's go into
let's answer a couple questions while this goes on. So there's a question that says, can the conversational UI be available for Ajax as well? So
yes, it is.
There you go.
Another one is, do we have the toolbox for Mac? I assume we're talking Xamarin here, and yes, we have it.
And then can I reference demos published in Telerik demos for chatbot in web applications? That's demos.telluric.com. That should be your homepage. Make it a link. But that's to go for every demo that you want to see. It's demos.telluric.com.
Okay, so I do have it up. So autocomplete, same thing. If you click on this tag helper thing, you notice the same autocomplete is now rendered through a tag helper, Kendo autocomplete. So you can do this for everything in ASP.NET Core, which is a big.
Yeah, initially we only had a handful of them.
A dozen or so. Yeah, now you can do it for everything.
Yep.
Let me show you a few other things. This one is new. This one's conversational UI, obviously. We talked about the travel side of things. Let's look at maybe healthcare, because this is how maybe you book an appointment with your doctor. So notice the chatbot fires up. This is also hooked up to Azure and Microsoft Bot Framework. So I can say, OK, go ahead and book a checkup. And it says, what type of specialist do you want to see? Family. And then these are, again, the same cards that you see in Xamarin and in desktop, now rendered through HTML and JavaScript. Yep. So you pick a doctor and then pick a date and you go for it. Right? So again, look at the source code. It's all out here. Again, notice how these chat cards are rendered. This one's hooked up with Azure Bot Service, but we have all of the code right here so you can see how we are rendering these adaptive cards and how we are hooking it up to Azure Cognitive Services, or I'm sorry, the bot framework. So it's all here. Take a look. And then the next piece I want to cover is this new thing called drop-down TreeView. So it is what it sounds like it is. It's a drop-down list, but it has a tree control inside of it. Mm-hmm. And this is apparently very highly requested and needed.
Because it is. I can attest to this.
Yeah, so navigation and hierarchical data that you just want the user to kind of drill down. So now you have it. So it's super easy to render. It's just a Kendo drop-down tree. And notice how it's just that items collection that we are binding it to. This one's hard-coded, but again, it looks for that parent-child relationship between this one's like the furniture is the parent, and then you have like 5 children. So if you bind it to that items collection, it does two-way data binding, and you're good to go. So that's new. And it's good for ASP.NET Core and MVC as well. Now, the last piece is SignalR. SignalR is back in ASP.NET Core, and Microsoft recently announced a new service called Azure SignalR, because there is some plumbing that we have to add to SignalR applications. You have to create a hub and so on. So now you have a way of doing it in the cloud. But if you want to play around with what we can do with SignalR Support, I have another browser pulled up here. So this one is showing you our grid. This is the Kendo UI grid. You can render it through MVC, React, Angular, PHP, however you want. It's just a grid. What is interesting is the data source behind the grid, which is the collection of things that we are displaying. That can be hooked up to a SignalR hub, and then it does real-time communication. So I have the same kind of page pulled up in 2 different tabs. See that? Same thing. Mm-hmm. So now if I go ahead and delete one from one tab, and if I go over to the other one, you see that it's gone for the other one, right? So it's real time.
Yeah.
So
and if you pull up Chrome DevTools, you'll see that as well. You see the protocol support there directly involved.
Yeah, and this works for like chat applications, any type of data synchronization is really good. And I mean, look at the code that we are putting in. It's just a hub that we are creating a connection to that, and then the data source is what's hooked up to that hub, so that it knows how to send off those push notifications, so that other clients who are listening to it can respond. So SignalR Support is built into a lot of different UI and the data sources in particular. So that's fundamentally what's going on with the web stack. Again, a lot of love across MVC, ASP.NET Core, and WinForms. One of the things we have done is we have added some documentation in case, again, you're looking to hook this up to Azure or other services. Look at Kendo UI in the cloud. Again, some of it is JavaScript, but again, the same things work with MVC, PHP, and whatever. So Cosmos DB, Azure Functions, Amazon DynamoDB, Google Cloud, it's all nicely documented so people can play around with it. So that's just a quick recap of what's going on with the web. Again, if you are building WebForms applications, you're fine. You don't have to upgrade to .NET Core unless you really need to. And then if you're on the cutting edge building MVC apps, lots of investments in MVC. And then if you're on the bleeding edge with ASP.NET Core, we can light up things like SignalR, but we can also give you like tag helpers across the board. So if you are a web developer, you should be happy with all the investments that we're making, and we're trying to make you more productive as an ASP.NET developer. So I think that's all I had, John, for web. Let me hand you back so you can cover reporting.
Cool. We got 5 minutes left, so I think we're going to make it. This is going to be
Probably.
great.
We'll try.
This is great.
All right, you're up.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's wrap things up by talking a little bit about reporting and report server. So, pretty hard to build an application without data. Everyone's pretty much got data, so probably a good idea is to do some reporting on that. And so if you weren't aware, Telerik offers some great solutions for doing just that. And if you haven't taken a look at this for the time you've been using Telerik products, you do owe it to yourself to do that. So Telerik reporting, we've added some new capabilities there, as well as on the report server side, which is a relatively new product from Telerik. We've added some additional capabilities going forward for both of those things. There's some other products we don't mention in this webinar, but they're also getting updated as well. So let's first talk about reporting. We've added a bunch of capabilities here. So as you mentioned right at the start, we've got this new web service data source component capability. So being able to configure that to point to a query URL, to be able to pull down data into our reports is extremely powerful. And I would imagine this was a highly requested feature as well.
It was one of the top features, yes.
There you go. It seems like a theme. We're always implementing the top features. So.
Well, that's our goal.
Yep. Digital signing for your PDF documents. So obviously when you're generating your PDF documents, which is a capability of Telerik reporting, amongst other things that you can generate through that as an export, and the ability to sign those documents turns out to be pretty powerful to prevent things like tampering. So being able to support that is obviously a good thing. Also, doing integrated search within reports. These reports can be pretty complex, pretty heavy, and so being able to integrate search directly into the report viewer is something that we've added capability to. So you can now do find operations against a report. Integration with NuGet packages. So when you integrate Telerik reporting, they're available as NuGet packages. You can pull them down and then start using them within Visual Studio. And then finally, the ability to add page breaks for table items is something that we've added for Telerik reporting. Moving on to report server quickly, we've added some new capabilities. So we're adding webhook support. This is, again, I'm sure another popular capability or popular feature. Yep, absolutely. So the ability to set these up and have a variety of filters against them for the various endpoints that they target. Data source component for web service. So again, similar capability there. This is an extension of that.
Yep.
And then finally, accessibility is a really important aspect of report server. And so we've added some new capabilities there. So we've added some new keyboard shortcuts for folks who like to operate on that level. All right. I think we're done.
Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
I had a couple of things to mention.
Yeah, sure.
We had one question. Maybe Stefan can answer that. So documentation. Are we continuing efforts to polish up our docs more for Kendo UI and for Xamarin?
We're continuing to polish our docs all the time. We have a major project right now that's going on that targets, that aims precisely to improve this documentation throughout all product suites and to help users navigate information faster and faster. So documentation are being worked on day in and day out.
Now, this is a shameless plug on my part. If the documentations don't cover it, we try and cover it with the blogs. So this should be your homepage, blogs.telerik.com, or a bookmark at least. So make sure to go check that out.
Yeah, another question. Chrissy was asking, like, how do we do custom templates for some of our UI, in particular for Kendo UI? We actually have some sample apps that show how to do this. And then also, if you're doing Xamarin, we have some SDK browser samples that are open sourced. So before you go reinvent the wheel, take a look at some of the sample apps that we have. May not be just in the docs, but you can see some of the edge cases where we kind of push the envelope, and we have custom templates for grids and charts and other types of UI.
We have 1 minute left. Are there any other questions we can answer quickly?
Last one is whether we can, how easy it is to switch from Crystal reports to Telerik reporting. Should be fairly easy. If you have any issues, just shoot us an email and we can help out with that.
Yeah. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
So the one last thing I want to mention is we talked about conversational UI all throughout for Xamarin, for desktop, for all things mobile, all things web, all things desktop that you can think of from us. We actually have a landing page for you. It's telerik.com/conversational UI. So go check it out, and we have demos for every platform that you can think of, from Kendo UI to WinForms and Xamarin. So play around with it and see how we are hooking things up to bot frameworks, and see what it can do for you. So it's all about transactional UI. It's all about those custom pickers and choosers and dates and custom cards that can help light up your UI or AI conversations with your chatbot.
There you go. Well, on behalf of Sam and Stefan, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today. This has been the Telerik R2 2018 live web release webinar, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.